Good morning, greetings, good afternoon, greetings from wherever and whatever time it is at your time zone. This is ASAP, your Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T, joined as always by my sister, Michelee. How you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Thanks for asking. You look
No
nice and
problem.
cheerful this morning. How did you wake up?
I don't know. Like right when I just started the show, I got into a good little vibe, and I'm ready to hop into this conversation today because I think that it's so appropriate and so necessary.
Hmm.
But first, let me know and the people know like how you're doing overall, what's your state of mind, checking in with one another.
Yeah. Um, I mean, actually for me, today I feel really good. I've been on my workout regimen, just trying to, better my health all the time. But my mental health, I'm pretty good. I mean, it's always a couple of, well, sometimes a little bumps in the road. But I'm just, trying to keep up with healthy habits, trying to start back journaling more consistently and, meditating and doing all that, workout. Like I said, I got to go to the park. Like out here, things are starting to get back normal,
Yeah.
yeah, so things, we're able to open up. We went to Taco Tuesday last night, so I'm feeling real good now. It's a little more freedom. So,
What a world when people actually comply with
mhm,
regulations.
yep.
What a thought. Around
Right.
here we're going backwards. So things are
Mhm.
closing down because people wanted to open up too early. We got
Yeah.
clubs that are about to, go in reverse and close back down. So it's a
Mhm.
little disappointing because it just you don't know when this is going to end. My niece just started fifth grade on a computer.
Mhm.
And so it's very interesting how all of this is playing out. So for me, I was feeling down earlier this week. Hopefully it didn't show up on the show on Tuesday, but I was
Mhm.
like not feeling well. I was dizzy. I had a headache. I was having body aches. So my wife and I went and got the coronavirus test, and our results came back yesterday. We're negative, so it wasn't that. So thank God. It
Right.
was my actually third time taking the test. So I have three negative test results. So each time, and I was crazy exposed at the beginning because I was still driving Uber.
Right.
So for the fact that I didn't catch it is dope because I was, just being cautious and trying to protect myself. But the conversation that we are having today is about protection. And before we dive into it, I just want to make sure that we say we demand justice for Breonna Taylor. And I think that
Mhm.
this kind of gives us into our straight truth, no chaser as well, because there's a narrative that Black men are not protecting Black women. But
Mhm.
we know that in the case of Breonna Taylor, like when the people broke into the house, her boyfriend got up and started to shoot. And he initially got arrested because of that, because he got up, to try to protect their home. So
Mhm.
that was just interesting, but we demand justice. Those officers need to be killed. Everybody, those officers need to be arrested who killed Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
And anybody involved with the signing of those decrees that allowed that to happen the way that it did need to be charged and fired as well, at least removed from their positions of power. So,
Mhm.
on to protection. You, as my sister, a Black woman, how how do you feel about this narrative, and how do you feel personally about in your personal life with the Black men who are close to you? Do you
Mhm.
feel a sense of protection from them? And outside of your inner circle, do you feel a general sense of protection?
I think within my, immediate circle, people amongst me, people who I choose to surround myself with, I do
Mm-hmm.
feel protected by them. It's been like a process, because sometimes I think it's not just protection, like, from bodily harm, but we have to also work with the people around us, like even with my significant other, it will be, just certain things, and it's just based on how you were conditioned, or things that you thought, things that you knew before. And it's like we have to kind of work with people to adjust to, like, what makes me feel protected. It's not just, you know, just some things that would normally happen, like, walk on the inside of the street, you know what I mean? Or, like, let me walk in this, and walk in the room first, or something like that, to make sure you won't be harmed. But it's other things. It's like, it's protection from other things, like emotional, and it's a lot of, it's layers to it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say from most people that I know, like most men in my life that I know, I do feel protected by them. um I don't feel like a threat or anything. But I guess from the outside world, there have definitely been, I mean, not just, okay, I'll give you an example, like,
Mm-hmm.
an example of when I felt unsafe, or, not protected before. So I would also say, during these conversations, when we're talking about protect Black women, you see a lot of activity on social media where people are talking about, we don't feel protected. And it's not just one or two of us. It's like a whole, Twitter went off. Everybody came out, you know what I mean? And on Facebook, Instagram, wherever, celebrities sharing it, everyday people, and all these different movements, just showing how, it's just a lack of protection. And the viewpoints that a lot of men that I know are, they're being shared on social media, and, whatever platform they're using, even talking in normal conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it doesn't feel like protection. It feels like, I feel like, from my perspective, a lot of things that I've seen, is like, more of the men that I know have been offended by the generalized "we don't feel protected" versus actually listening to why we're saying, or the fact that we're saying we don't feel protected. It's like everybody's on a, like, oh wait, but how you gonna say that? Not all of us. And it's like, if you just listen, we can have the opportunity to tell you how to better protect us. Okay, so that's one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can work on that, with people that we know, like you were talking about yesterday, building relationships with people. If we're in relationship, with one another, then we can communicate better. We can, it's like a trust between us, it's a respect. Yeah. And so, but I'll give you another example of, like, me being out in the world where,
Mm-hmm.
out on, when I used to take public transportation back in Atlanta, when I was going to Georgia State. And I remember it was a time when, like, I was walking home. I think I had a class that ended probably around 6 or something. So the sun is going down, and I'm walking out of the train station, and, like, it was normal to, for guys to try to, just saying hello, or, whatever. And so it was just a normal exchange, and I'm a person that I will speak back. I know a lot of times women feel the need to, like, put on, like, a stone face, or just not speak back, because it can be an ongoing conversation that you're not trying to be in. So a lot of people just ignore, just, whatever, the gestures, the greetings. And I just, I was like, well, there's no point in not saying hi. I can just say hi. And this guy kept following me, though. He's like, well, since she spoke back, let me try something else. Then it went to, like, what's your name, and can I get your number, and all this, so I'm like, see, maybe I should have just not said anything. Maybe I should have just had on the face, and then, maybe he would have just left me alone. So
Mm-hmm.
this is what happens, though. This is part of the not feeling, this is what happens in a lot of our lives, like, on a daily basis. And so I'm continuing, just walking away. I'm trying to, speed up. I got little legs, so it take me a little while to get down the street. But I'm walking and he proceeds to like follow me down the street, and he's like getting louder and louder. He's like, and I wear my hair short. So he's like, oh, starts calling me out my name. Well, oh, you don't want to talk to me, and you must like girls and this and that, like just all kind of stuff, right? Just unnecessary. And I'm like, but at the same time, I'm not really bothered by the words, but it's the fact that he's getting closer to me and getting louder and more ignorant. And I'm looking around at that point, and I'm surrounded by all these people, plenty of Black men around me, plenty of, like just everybody around me. And nobody thought to just step in and be like, hey, like, I don't know. It just felt very isolated. I felt like the most endangered then at that moment. And I had never really, carried a weapon or, pepper spray even at that point. But it made me consider like, well, I might really have to do that because like, no, I'm looking around. I'm like, I'm sure somebody will come and like check this guy or something, but that didn't happen. And I'm sure that happens a lot more to more people, to other people. And it's just examples like that, because that wasn't the only time. That was just one clear example. The first time that I ever felt that in public, because I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting anybody to just harass me like that. But that was the first time I experienced it and felt isolated, felt like helpless, or felt like, something could have happened to me and no one would have even stepped in. They would have just been watching.
Yeah, so just me envisioning it, and I don't know why I saw you getting off at the West End train station. I don't know what station you were going to, but I was just thinking that, like, if you were by yourself, like if it was like an empty station and it was just you and another person, maybe you wouldn't have said anything. But the comfort of probably being somewhere that you're familiar with, right, surrounded by people, it was, populated, whether it was heavily populated or just moderately populated, it was people around. So there's no reason to feel like super in danger, right? So that sense of comfort and then having that taken away feels like a violation. Like it is a violation of just your comforts. It's like, I remember when I was younger, our house got broken into. And my mother was like, I don't even feel comfortable in my home anymore because I feel violated from this is the place that I'm supposed to, feel secure and safe. And now that has even been taken away. So in your neighborhood, in a place that you are familiar with, getting off the train, going home or wherever you were headed, for that to be taken away is something that, honestly, as a man, because I'm a certain size now, like since I've been 19 and over, I haven't really had to worry about where I am. Right. I can travel the world and not have to think about like where other than like race issues and being seen as a threat and maybe that causing me harm. But most of the time, if I'm just walking around, people will avoid me more so than try to speak to me. And I feel I always have that sense of, I can just go as I please. And I always have it in my brain too that is a privilege, that is something that comes with me being male. That's, it comes with, my size. And, sometimes being seen as a threat works in my favor. Right. So it is, and it's something I even had to train myself to do, like to look a certain way. And we spoke about that a little bit yesterday, but I just wanted to say it from my perspective that I completely understand. Like I can see it, right? And I can empathize with it because I know at the same, it's almost like, how some people, they feel survivor's guilt.
Mm,
because they make it from a situation, but they know they've left people behind. When
right.
I am like traveling the world and I think about my friends, I think about you, I think about all of my different sisters, and I'm like, yeah, I love going out and traveling, and I like traveling alone. But I think
Mm,
about, even though you travel alone and you do it, but I'm always concerned, like, is she okay? What's going
yeah.
on? I hope ain't nothing, nothing crazy is happening. And I just I believe that we need to build a society that doesn't glorify men taking advantage or exploiting women. And I
Hmm.
do see that that is a thing that exists, right? So even in my position, and we had a discussion yesterday about social media back and forths. And I was
Right.
saying, instead of talking about what isn't happening, let's talk about what is happening. Because the thing is, I was so happy that you talked about not just physical protection, but you
Hmm.
were talking about emotional protection. And we need to be able to protect our women on all fronts.
Right.
And sometimes we just stop at the physical, if we are even, conscious enough to be there. But
Hmm.
even those of us who are, who proclaim to be good men and who proclaim to protect our women, physical comes first, just because that's where our brain goes. But at the same time, I could have my wife walking on the inside of the street while, also being verbally abusive or, mentally constraining, and not
Hmm.
realize that I am, being a part of the problem. So I think there has to be something that we can teach. Like, we have to
Hmm.
teach each other how to do that, because we spoke about it a little bit yesterday. Men are not socialized in that way, especially not black men. We barely, in the black family, in the black community, talk about mental health at all. So when
Right.
it comes to protecting the mentality, the emotions of our women, we are not we're not wired or trained to be able to perform in that way. So
Right.
in your view, because I believe in being, results oriented and solution oriented, how do
Hmm.
we get there? What are the steps that we need to take
I
to
say
get
first and
men?
mhm.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Finish. I say first and foremost, like what I'll tell people is to just listen, because I think, like again, like I said, when people are just so quick to defend, just what they didn't do or what they're not a part of, they're quick to just say, "Well, I don't do that," and you don't realize some things that you might do, or some ways that you might be able to help the situation. Um, and so just simply listen. And I think also when we're running across these situations where we are talking about like actual physical harm, those people who will go that
Right.
far, even verbal, even like shouting at a woman on the street, making her feel unsafe. um the
Yeah.
bystanders, even if you're not the one, even if you're not the attacker, you have a role there too. Like, there is something you can do. And one interesting thing that I always I seem to run into often is, when I bring this situation up to, a man that I know, just to get their, sometimes I'll just ask some men in my life just a random question. I do it to you. I might
Mhm.
ask, well, how do you feel about this? Or what would you do in this situation? And a lot of times when it is like, I'll bring up something like physical abuse. And like, what if it was your brother? What if your brother was beating on this woman or something? Or just a situation like that. And a lot of times, um, people would be like, "Well, that wouldn't happen to me. It wouldn't be in my family." And I'm like, "Well, what if it was your friend? Your friend, your coworker, somebody that you talk to every day, you cool with, and what if they did it?" And a lot of people's response is, "Oh, well, that's none of my business." And even when we were having these conversations on with Megan Thee Stallion recently, getting shot, like actually like shot. Everybody don't get shot. Like that's extreme, first of all. And people, not only, it wasn't just jokes being made, but even when people were discussing it, and like even on a more serious note, it was like well, I'm not getting involved in nobody else's situation, or what did she do? And it's more of that concern rather than just trying to figure out, well, what can you do to de-escalate the situation? What could you have done? Like, for these people to be so comfortable to go that far, and because that wouldn't be their first time. Like someone who's used to like yelling at a woman at the train stop, or they have friends and family members, some other men around who can check them. And if these men who already go to the extremes of doing that in public, they don't care who sees it. There are people, they already don't respect women. So women, when we are the only ones trying to tell them, hey, you're attacking me, hey, you're hurting me, they don't care. Of course, they're the ones doing it. So we're talking to you, good guys, the good, quote unquote, good guys who are always so quick to be like, well, that's not me. Don't sweep all of us, paint all of us with the same brush. But it's like, y'all can start talking to other men, because a lot of you all have friends who will do stuff like that. Even if they didn't do it in front of you, maybe you can have those conversations. Just bring it up one day and see, hey, how you feel about this? What would you do if you were in this situation? Because you don't know who they might not do it in front of you. They might be the type of person where it's like, okay, I know he wouldn't be for that, so I'm not going to bring that around them. But if you are having these conversations, rather than it's always us who are already the victims of them, if we're the only ones talking to them, they're already not trying to receive anything that we're saying. They already don't respect us, and so you all should like intervene somehow, some way. And I think also pay attention to how we're raising boys, and mentoring, not only if it's your child, but mentors, because all these guys have fathers, you know what I mean? Some of them are not, in their lives, but we had teachers or sports coaches, or somebody around the neighborhood, a neighbor, somebody that you're interacting with. Just see the mental state of these young men that's around you, because they'll be the next ones. Maybe they didn't have the proper guidance. Maybe they didn't have good role models, good male role models in their lives, or father figures. And so you have a responsibility, like with this village mentality, to see where they are, to try to give them something, more, to try to guide them in the right direction, because they could be the next generation that's coming up as abusers, and that's all they knew. Maybe that's all they saw. So I think those are ways you can do it. Just listen first and foremost, and you all have the conversations amongst yourselves with other men.
I like that. Bring it up in your own circle, on your own time, without having to be prompted. And maybe even if you are, prompted by women talking about it, just bring it up, because we can easily say, oh, it's not me, or it doesn't happen in my circle. But have you ever really even asked the question to know for sure?
Yep.
To know where people may be. It may be like, because we know when you go down, things become like a slippery slope. When you accept one thing, how far are you going to accept, other things? And a lot of the times people will say, oh, it's not my business. What they're really saying is, I'm scared, right?
Yeah.
I'm scared that if I step in, it's going to be a problem. But if you're scared as a man, think about
How do you think
how
I
much
feel?
more scared, the woman in the situation is. So we have to, we talk about man up all the time, but man up, and we also need to redefine what manhood is, or even we need to define it, because you can ask different people on the street what a man is, and they might give you 15 people might give you 30 different answers.
Right.
And so there is no consolidation. And like I said yesterday, and I keep saying this, I say this on the show that I do weekly, his and her rules of engagement. And I say it to you. I say it to this audience that we need more unisex mentoring programs. We need more, like, okay, I appreciate, Boy Scout, Girl Scout. I appreciate, you know, all girl and all boy rites of passages, but we need some type of institution that teaches us how to communicate with one another, how to engage with one another, what the rules are, what
Mm-hmm.
is desired from the adult women talking to the boys. I
Right.
I have female mentors. I have women that I look up to.
Mm-hmm.
Because fortunately for me, my mother and my grandmother both had very, very strong personalities. And not only saw them with strong personalities, I saw them with men who didn't see their strong personalities as like a deterrent. I grew up with my father with a mother who is like, if you know my mother, when she walks into a room,
Yeah.
right? The same thing with my grandmother, but I grew up with my grandfather as well. So seeing that men in my life could handle strong women that were also
Mm-hmm.
in my life gave me the viewpoint of, okay, this is, what I gravitate toward. And seeing
Mm-hmm.
my father and grandfather handle these strong-willed women showed me that it's possible and that it shouldn't be like me having her be subservient is the only way for me to appreciate a woman, right?
Right.
My father washed the clothes when I was growing up. My father cooked when I was growing up. And it doesn't, like, just challenging traditional gender roles that you see on television. And it was never like an issue. He played sports, he ran track, he did other traditional masculine things as well. And at
Right.
no point also did my mother tear him down and make him feel less than for doing those so-called traditional feminine things around the house. So
Man, that's what's needed though. That is exactly what's needed. And I appreciate it. And I'm constant, like, that's one thing that I'm, even as children, even in being, like teaching kindergarten, and younger children like that, even, teaching crafts and, any way that I'm engaging with young people, I'm also not trying to establish those, well, this is only for a girl, this is only for a boy, because that's how it starts, like, especially in the home and in those formative years where we are instilling these ideas of, this is, only a man does this, only a woman does this, because it restricts you, even when especially when you get older and you've grown up hearing these same things and seeing it. And we don't, that's why you haven't had a lot of women early on able to fill certain leadership positions. We talked about earlier, oh my God, who were we talking about?
Kamala.
No, who else? NAACP. Oh my
Oh,
God.
Ida B. Wells.
Ida B. Wells, right. Okay. She was saying it was sexism, right? That where she wasn't even listed as one of the founding members of the NAACP. Right, like, and we don't think about these things, and a lot of times like even before Ella Baker even spoke to it on, dealing in the civil rights movement, and the leaders, the male leaders, on, on some, like, well, this is not a woman's place, and, you belong back there. And so what do you think is going to happen in the everyday lives of the people that they're not even public figures, but if they already have these ideas and they can't handle, like, a woman with a strong personality, and like how I touched on a little bit yesterday, we talked about a little bit yesterday, with everyone possessing a little bit of, we both have masculine and feminine
And feminine quality.
yeah. And so you do have women with more dominant, with a more dominant presence, and speaking with authority and stuff. And some men, based on their traditional beliefs, they believe that they have to put this woman in her place. And that creates the violence, and it promotes the violence and all this. I have to do, I can't let her outman me. And it's like, why does she have to be a man? She can't just be a dominant, a woman with a dominant presence. And why is this idea that you have to make us low for you to feel high? And that's the part that's problematic, and it spills over to all these different aspects in life. And that comes down to, because there are people that's very extreme one way or the other, and those people who would go as far as, I mean, the furthest, I guess, is like murder, and which does happen. We look at homicide rates and stuff, and let's just say it's not only cisgender women. We have trans women who are like even more so, victimized by, at the hands of men. And these ideas, I want to also just kind of point out that too, these ideas of like sex and sexuality, identity, and what it is to be a man, what it is to be a woman, and these ideas that we have, heteronormative ideas of what you're supposed to be attracted to. And a lot of these men cannot handle their own attraction. And so what happens a lot of times is like a false narrative that the trans women who are killed is because they tricked somebody into believing that they were, a cisgender woman. And that's not true. You can actually listen to and find out what happened in these situations and talk to a lot of people in that community. And that's not true, because a lot of trans people are proud trans people. And the men who they come in contact with, a lot of times when it does end up, in a fatal situation, they cannot handle their own identity, their own attraction and sexuality. And so they go off and murder these people. And that's not right. Like, and we're not checking that. But also think about your boys who they worry about, finding out what they're attracted to, who they're attracted to. It's a whole community thing. Even your siblings, anybody around you. So we all do have a role in this of perpetuating these same ideas. Mothers do it. Mothers, we have a lot of women. We have also have a lot of these ideas. We've internalized a lot of these ideas that are harmful to us, and we continue to perpetuate it. So it's like we all can reflect and figure out how we can solve this problem, because it's a whole community effort.
Yeah. And you're right. So, like I was saying, I want there to be, and just like when we say we can't depend on the schools to teach everything, there's really no type of institutionalized socialization program. We just kind of go through the motions and hope that people develop socialization skills as they interact with people. And it's all just a test run. There are no parameters. There are no like lessons on it. There are different outside programs, but like I said before, we have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, but nothing that kind of brings this conversation with everybody sitting together, understanding, okay, this is how these people respond to this. And this is how they will react when this happens. Or it just learning rules of how to approach one another. And when we talk about protection, we don't know all the facets of what that is, which is why even yesterday I was saying, let's talk about what we want. Let's talk about the actual desire. What is the ideal version of that male protection that we are seeking? And let's list those qualities, let's list those things, and let's try to build that. Because I know for myself, I can see something, if it's giving me the directions of what to do, I can internalize that and start to implement it.
Right.
And you are correct that people need to step outside of themselves and outside of their feelings when they are presented with new information or information that doesn't paint them in the best light, when people critique their own actions. But the same thing with, like, what I liked about my parents growing up is when they did whoop my brother and I, they whooped us, but they spoke to us while they were whooping us. They let us
Mhm.
know why we were being punished, why we were
Right.
on punishment. There was that, I don't think there was any time that I was punished and I didn't know why.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't know corrective steps of what to avoid and what to do to avoid this from happening again. And
Right.
with parents, every parent doesn't do that. And in conversations, every time we critique someone, we don't always do that. So
Mhm.
I want to make sure that when we are being critical, because I'm crazy critical of other dudes, which is why I
Mhm.
try to avoid being around them a lot, because these conversations aren't easy to bring up. But
Right.
even with that, I have to go out of my way to be around other men so that I can have this conversation, so that I can implement my thoughts and my ways into the dialogue and just bring it to the table. Because sometimes people don't even think of things. You might
Mhm.
just, they say, two brains, two brains are better than one. That's because two people might think about the same exact thing in different ways, and they can work together and function. They can make something work where I might have the vision to, you know, do this thing, and you may be strong in this area. Like my brother, I'm more on the side of, okay, I see the big vision. My brother sees the day by day, right?
Right.
So there's no way for me to get to the big vision if I don't do the day by day. And if all he sees is the day by day, he will never see the big picture. But if we
Mhm.
work together, then I can show him that this is where we can go. And he
Right.
can show me, okay, in order to get there, we need to do this step, this step, this step, the incremental, minute, the micro, while I see the macro. So
Right.
that's an example of just my brother and I, in the different ways that we think, and how those two different mindsets can make something productive happen. The same thing with me avoiding men because I get sick of them
Yeah.
is not helping is not helping the situation, because I'm not bringing new ideas to the table. I'm not bringing up the issues that they may be glossing over or they don't see as problematic,
Mhm.
right? So even me as a so-called good man can be part of the problem just by excluding myself and my thoughts from being
Right.
in the greater conversation,
Mhm.
right? So being able to enter those rooms and being able to be heard, being able to stand up for my own voice and not be invalidated in a room full of people who would do the same thing to a woman who was making the same points.
Mhm.
So using my privilege to, create new dialogue and bring more to the conversation. So we're
Right.
definitely going to stay on this realm of protection throughout the entire episode, but we're going to ease on into our highlight reel, who is Angela Davis. And is actually Dr. Angela Davis, but she never goes by doctor. She has like
Yeah.
an actual PhD and an honorary PhD,
Mhm.
but doesn't refer to herself as a doctor. But she is, known for being very active in the Black Power struggle. She has close ties with the Communist Party of the 70s. She started a lot of groups around communism and socialism, understanding that economic system of, everybody having an equal part in
Right.
the pie is very necessary to not only combat the economic disparities, but also racial disparities as well, seeing it from
Mhm.
the economic lens. Um, she was enthralled in a court case in the 70s where some firearms. So she was actually defending these black men who had been charged with murdering some people, and she was coming to their defense because she has been a long-standing she calls herself an abolitionist, a prison
Mm-hmm.
abolitionist, because
Mm-hmm.
like we spoke about last week, the 13th Amendment has legally made prisons new age enslavement. So
Right.
she wants to abolish prisons because, like we alluded to yesterday, they call themselves correctional facilities, but what are they rehabilitating?
Right.
Not
Nothing.
much. Right. So she's a prison abolitionist. So she was coming to the defense of these young men who had been charged for these murders. And then some firearms that she owned. The story goes some firearms that she owned was taken by one of the brothers of the men and some other people, and they took hostage of the courtroom. They took the judge and some jurors hostage, and they
Right.
escaped with the men who were on trial. And I believe they got killed in a police shootout melee, but they also, shot the judge,
Right.
and it was like a whole police shootout. So Angela Davis, having been the owner of the firearms, was charged, and she had to go on the run. She went to, she would hide with friends and all these things, and eventually she got, acquitted, which was, not a small feat in that time period. This is like 71. So
Yeah.
she got acquitted, and then she spent a lot of time, in Cuba at the behest of Fidel. And if you know anything about, Cuba during the Black Power movement, Fidel opened up the borders of Cuba to a lot of, Black people who were on the run from the United States or put
Right.
on the most wanted list. And I skipped over J. Edgar Hoover had listed Angela Davis before her trial as like top 10 terrorists. She was on the FBI watch list for
Yep.
years before her trial. And we all know, like, if you don't know who J. Edgar Hoover is, ugh, he's one of the worst people
Exactly. Ugh.
to ever live. But so yeah, just like people before her though, and even after her, like Assata Shakur, even Robert F. Williams, who we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, also took asylum in Cuba, but she also did a lot of traveling in the Eastern Bloc of Europe, from Germany to Berlin and all those places, that um, just learning more about communism and socialism and how, equally distributed wealth can help balance things out in our, long struggle for equality and freedom.
Right.
Um, yeah, and I wanted to bring her up to date in this conversation because Angela Davis was very critical of the Million Man March. And she was critical of it because initially they did not invite women to even be a part of the march. And she was saying the same thing that we were saying. Okay, so if you're going to have a meeting of men, at least have items on the agenda that address women issues, especially women issues as it pertains to being protected by our Black men. None of these
Mhm.
things are on the agenda. So,
Right.
if you're going to have a gathering of men, that is understandable, that is applaudable. However, don't leave the woman's issues out. And what better way to have the woman's issues present better than having the actual women there? Like I keep saying, I have I have a very big disdain for echo chambers,
Yeah.
and on any side, because when all you hear is validation of your one-sided points and your one-sided views and they're never challenged,
Mm.
then that's how you become this this vitriolic figure, because you come into the conversation already embattled, because you've heard this story from this person, from that person, to back up all of your points, not ever hearing any of the points to the, of the opposition, or just to counter it. Because, like, I don't even like using terms opposition or antithetical, because it still sets things up to be so combative, so competitive. And when we're talking about men and women, there is a possibility, right? Let's talk about race relations and sex relations. Race relations in the world, we know that, different ethnicities come from different continents. If there's no travel between continents, it is a serious reality where you can have people of different ethnicities never interact with one another,
Right.
ever. And life will go on just like normal. There is not one situation in sexually reproductive animals where you can have a situation where the opposite sexes don't interact with one another and the species lives on and thrives. So for me, the situation between the sexes and genders are a little bit, they edge out race relations to me in importance. Because if
Let
we
me.
don't, go ahead.
Okay. You want to finish your point? Go ahead.
I, I was just saying, for me, that sex, the conversation between the sexes edges out just a little bit race relations, because there is no possibility of us not interacting with one another. We
Mm-hmm.
need one another, and we can't continue to see each other as opposition, as competitors, as
Okay.
opponents. Go
Right.
ahead.
Okay. So I was gonna say, I hear what you're saying about the echo chamber, um, and not being a fan of that idea, but I think and I'm speaking especially from a woman's point of view, because we do tend to be the ones, you know what I mean, more left to be, more vulnerable in this situation. Um, and I think we can kind of consider it a safe space, because there are times when, if we bring up our issues, like actual issues that we are having, that we're experiencing, um,
Mm-hmm.
we're told that our points aren't valid, or for whatever reason we deserved it, or so there, when we are having these discussions amongst ourselves, I think especially as women it is important, because it's a safe space for us. And a lot of times we're being told that we are crazy, or we're all, this is happening because of something that we did, or something, when actually there are other challenges. There are people who can better explain. And when we do hear that confirmation that it's not only happening to me, I'm not the only one that's being victimized by, in this way, or, something similar, it's a safe space for us to say, okay, like you feel more confident. Even being a victim of domestic abuse, I can say,
Mm-hmm.
like, I felt when, okay, having a conversation, just having an experience for myself, right? And I hadn't told many people, especially a lot of people, like, very close to me. But when I was going through it, at that time, I'm talking to girlfriends, and when I talked to them about it, it was a different feeling, of more like protection, of like, okay, I've heard of this, and this is not good. Hurry up and get out, whatever. And then, and just even afterwards, even after everything was said and done, after the situation, and I was still able to talk about it. But when I would have the conversation with some men, it was like the questions were more like, well, what did you do? What was, how did, why did you do that? You know what I mean? And so that was like, that's that, even still, that protection of like, why are you still trying to justify this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's not to say that women don't ever have faults, or, you know what I mean? But when there is something, like when especially when we're talking about like immediate danger, bodily harm, or whatever, these things, like, we actually need to know how to communicate with each other. When you're talking to a woman who you know is going through a violent situation or has been through a violent situation, you have to know how to talk to her. You know what I mean? And I think we've been talking a lot actually about how men communicate with men, how women communicate with women. And I
Right.
think in order to protect us, you need to listen to how we, like, find another way to communicate with us. Don't just try to, well, this how I talk with the boys, like, try to figure out what a woman needs, how a woman needs to be heard, how a woman needs to be, how she needs to feel, to be protected. Because it's not just about buying something. It's not just about, like, if something happens, because it's not that often. I don't think, well, not that I know of, like, the chance that you would get to be that knight in shining armor, like, actual danger is coming, and like, oh, I can throw my body in front of hers and protect her. That's
Right.
not the only form of protection, like we spoke about so often. And I think I want to also address the ideas that we talked about earlier, these ideas of what a woman is or what a woman should be, what a man, all the places and the roles and these expectations. I know a lot of
Right.
times these come from our, like, cultural and religious ideas and things like that, are, the training that we got from that. And so even when we look at like, some women, like, if you're a certain stature, or your profession, or how you dress, and you can be a masculine presenting woman, why do you feel that you can't still protect her? You can be a, you know what I mean? You can be a even like with in prostitution or escorts, or women in sex work. Why can't they still be protected? And we know a lot of times those are the least, also amongst the least protected, because they feel like, well, she putting herself out there. She already, she's out on the streets. She's choosing to do this and that. And it's, why is that okay? Because, and I watch these interviews, that it's a guy on he has a YouTube channel, Soft White Underbelly, if you ever seen any of those interviews. He interviews a lot of, like, homeless people, a lot of prostitutes, and pimps, and whoever is on the street, willing to tell their story. And 9 times out of 10, well, actually, I've never seen a interview where he was interviewing a prostitute and she hasn't said that she's been robbed and raped, and because the people don't feel that you can do that to them. The history of Black women in America and other places, I'm sure, when you had slavery, we didn't have autonomy. We didn't get to choose. You just brought it up yesterday, I think, where we were even talking about how
Mm-hmm.
not that long ago, it was no such thing as raping a Black woman. We couldn't be raped. We couldn't be violated. Even to this day, it's the idea that we don't feel pain the way that other people feel pain. Our tolerance is supposed to be higher. So these ideas are real, and we make these decisions and act upon it, like, with these same ideas. So you have to challenge it. If in the church you're told a woman's position is only to do this, you're not going to, in your everyday life, when you leave that institution and you're out in the real world with your woman, or with your daughter or nieces or whoever, what other women you have around you, you're still carrying those same ideas. We can't act like we can turn off a switch and your whole training from when you were a child to your adulthood is the same type of ideas being spread. You can't think that you can turn that off and be like, okay, well, I don't do this. You have these same ideas being, like, pounded into you, from your upbringing, from when you were a child. So we just have to
So,
challenge those old ideas.
so yes, I agree with every point you made. So let me clarify something. And I wanted to, hopefully I don't forget that last point that you just made.
Okay.
Because I want to start from the beginning. So when I'm talking about echo chambers, an echo chamber isn't just when you create safe spaces. There are places. So, like, there are places, even when we're talking about race relations, where we need to have conversations internally just as Black people, right?
Right.
With nobody else involved. We just need to have our own conversations. Those are safe places.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, women will be able to communicate and completely identify and fully empathize with other women because they may have experienced the exact same thing, right? Same thing with men. The same thing with pretty much any community. Those are fine. The thing is, what I see is those, only those exist. I'm saying we need the safe places. And when the safe places turn into echo chambers is when you continuously present the problem of the other side without ever bringing the other side into the conversation and
Mm-hmm.
considering their views. So in the reality of women, it has to be done strategically, right? And we spoke about this yesterday, and I just alluded to it earlier. If I have a relationship with you and you tell me of some of just the realities of what you go through as a woman, whether it be on social media, whether it be in real life, I ingest that. And what I need to do is I need to take that conversation with me to the other men that I talk to. That breaks the echo chamber just right there because I'm
Mm-hmm.
listening to you and now I'm bringing the conversation to more people. It's the incremental 6 degrees of separation. It doesn't always, like, tomorrow we're not going to write a curriculum and start a program. It's something that I'm bringing up because I want us to do that, right? So this is the social activism playbook. Everything that we talk about on here is about strategy, is about
Mm-hmm.
not only learning from the past but learning from what's happening right now, and then seeing, okay, what do we need to modernize? What do we need to consider? Are we overlooking a path that has already been blazed, right? Because that's what I see a lot of the times, even in our full fight in this Black liberation struggle, is that we
Mm-hmm.
will have trails that have already been blazed by our forefathers and mothers and just
Right.
not know, which is another reason why we do the highlight reel, so we can highlight individuals who have been active, understand the work that they have done, what they are still currently doing, and how we can, still listen to those things and implement them today. So my point being, when I talk about echo chamber breaking, it doesn't have to be this big monumental thing. It
Right.
can be just you telling me what you went through. Now, me knowing that, and I know like a few other women who have been in like abusive relationships and have shared with me for whatever reason those realities. And me taking that and understanding what that is, like how that happens, and how they have monitored to get themselves out of those situations, and
Right.
how difficult it is, and what going back is, and why they went back, and why they took a long time to actually break free. All of those things are things that I would have never heard in a group full of men.
Right.
I would have never known anything about that. I would have never considered the thought process. I'd have never considered how, scary it is, or how isolating it can be in those situations, in the building blocks that happen, right? The
Mm-hmm.
disconnect from the family that occurs. All of that I would have never known had I not had female friends and people who opened up to me to tell me that reality, so that now I can even see it, I can identify it, and I can be of some sort of assistance. And even when I'm trying to be of assistance, I need to ask them
Right.
how to assist, because I can't just say, leave, right? I can't say, I'm about to pull up, get in the car, we're going to leave. They have to be
Right.
ready. They have to be mentally ready. And that's just that situation, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we have to know how to talk to one another. I talked about it yesterday. My wife, we had a conversation about how we speak to one another, the tone of voice, the level, all of that
Yep.
is necessary.
Yep.
And just understanding that you have to listen and just there was no reason. I didn't even need to ask her why. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't
Right,
do me
right.
any harm to just acquiesce.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, she doesn't like yelling. Okay.
We like to challenge
And
though.
it's
We
not,
just like to challenge,
a lot of
and
people
I
do.
think because we feel like on the, like just defensive about it and like instead of just I mean I think that's the basics of it though, is just listen, just simply listen. I don't think we do a lot of that, and also inquire. Maybe it's some things that we don't even think to tell somebody. How, like, just think, how can I better communicate with you, if, especially if not only when there's a conflict, because I think that's the time when we do have these conversations is when it's already too many failed attempts, like what I
Mhm.
was saying yesterday about even how we learn to communicate or how not to communicate is after several failed attempts of not communicating effectively with people. So I think
Yep.
especially entering into new relationships or even old, it's never too late, because sometimes we just settle and we just deal with it, and people can just you can just be standoffish or whatever and you just stuck together, but people be miserable because they don't communicate with each other. But I think at any point, and I think we should make it a priority to just to even think, like write it down on your phone or something, like let me ask, put it in your calendar. Well, one day, let me just ask, how you feel, how you feeling, are we, how would you
Right.
like to, how would am I, anything concerning you. It's just something very simple that we can do, like small practices.
It goes back to our check-in. I won't start this show until I know how you are. And it doesn't matter if it has anything to do with the topic of the show,
Right.
whatever. And we talked about that being a cultural thing in Africa and being connected in that way and not being able to conduct business, not being able to do anything before I know how you are doing, how your family is doing, how your home is doing, how did you
Yeah.
sleep? Like, I actually, and like I said, this is a model for people to have conversations on their own so that they can know how to talk to each other. So that
Mhm.
just like when I brought up echo chamber and you were like, but we need safe spaces. In any other conversation where two people aren't in a relationship with one another, they aren't communicating effectively, it could be you can misinterpret what I say and then get aggressive to say,
Right.
you want us to blend, but when we blend, we don't get heard and such and such. We need these safe spaces, and then just go on the attack. No, you listened, you heard, you responded. I heard, I responded. I
Hmm.
actually heard what you said. I listened to it and then said, okay, I need to clarify. I understand the importance of the safe space. I just want us to break the echo chambers as well.
Yeah.
Like, in addition to, we definitely need those male rites of passages. We need the female rites of passages. We need the camaraderie building between the same sex, right?
Right.
To learn from one another, to share those shared experiences, but then also be considerate of the opposing experience, those
Right.
that don't reflect yours.
Hmm.
And so that is something, but that comes with listening, that comes with communication, that comes with patience. And so what I want us to, what this to be is a model for people to understand this is how you have a conversation, even if you're coming from different angles. It
Right.
doesn't mean that you're not actually wanting the same goal. And my problem with when people just attack each other or talk at each other is like, how does it progress? How does it get us to the result? and
Hmm.
and ask people, what is the result, right? In algebra, you have the answer to the equation. You have to figure out the variables that get you to that answer. So
Right.
we have to look at this algebraically, where we have the answer. Okay, x plus y equals 6. So we know we're trying to get to 6. That's the goal, 6. How do we get there? So working backwards.
Hmm.
And sometimes we don't have the solution in mind. We just have, I got to get this out. And I understand that as well. But is it productive? And I
Mm,
always ask myself, is what I'm doing productive? Is me? It's just like when you're having, when you're in a debate with somebody and they just bring up anything. Once you invalidate their point, they just start bringing up all types of things. And it was like,
right,
now if I allow them to take me down that road, I'm gonna get off the entire point. So I'm gonna
right,
bring them back. That
yeah,
we're not talking about that. They say, "Oh, why should Black Lives Matter?" Well, because the word matter means
right,
it is valued. It,
right,
it like, let's just define matter. And then they were like, well, Black people smell weird. It's like, I'm not talking about that. So I'm not even going to allow that right now to offend me enough to go down that road. You asked me one question. Let's stay on that path. And sometimes
yeah.
we allow ourselves to get distracted off of what the main point is.
Exactly. That's what happens all the time. I'm telling you, besides you, like besides someone like you and probably a couple other people in my life who can actually listen without getting offended, like, and I try to make that a point that, especially talking when it's something like if I'm part of the group being accused, right? I'm making it a point to take myself out of it. Let me see why you feel that way. I'm not just going to be on the defense, and that's what happens a lot, and we never actually get to the meat of the conversation. Like we don't get to talk about how we don't feel protected. We don't get to talk about the ways which you could be included in that group, because when we talk about it, when we're talking about like Black women being protected and stuff, we're not just looking at what outside people are doing. Like, we're talking about in our everyday lives. Who are we with? Who do we socialize amongst? Like, majority of us are with Black partners, Black men,
Mm-hmm.
and so you are also, so don't get offended. You can be a man who protects and loves and cares for your Black woman and Black women in your life, but there are other men who don't. So just understand that, like, I think when you asked me, like, what do I think what solutions would be, I say, like, make it a point for you to take the initiative to find out, because like women, we talk about it. We do, like you said, with the echo chambers and in our safe spaces and all this stuff. And a lot of times we see it. Like, you have access to it. You can look on Twitter and see, who are these the people talking about it, because we talk about it all the time. You can pull up millions of tweets, and we're having these conversations daily, weekly, all year round. And
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for you to look and find out. And I intentionally do that. I'll just have like a, a word vomit almost. Like, I'll express something because I'm always reflecting on something. I'm always thinking about something, and it might be a passage or something. People interact. Some people just scroll by, but then you'll
Mm-hmm.
have people who will read it, and it's like, it's there for you to find out what this is about. And I'm not the only one with, this is just my perspective. I'm not going to speak for all women, because there are women who feel differently to me. And there are some people who feel like more strongly than me. It's people who are just more passive about these issues. And I think you can still take the initiative to just be like, well, let me just check, let me just see how my sister feels about this. Let me see how my girl feels about this. Let me see how my mom feels about this. And you will learn a whole lot more, rather than waiting for it to land on your doorstep, rather than like, you don't have to be the one who's actually doing the victimizing, but you are a part of that group. If we're saying this about Black men, because as Black women in general, of course, it's not going to be every single Black woman, but this is an issue that Black women are having. And who are we having this issue with? Black men. So if you are a Black man, you are a part of that group. So you do have a responsibility, not just to respond like, well, not all Black men. I don't. Like, you haven't even listened, and you're getting so wrapped up in just that accusation of, like, this generalized statement, that you're not even going to listen to anything else past that point. And if you know that it's a situation where we're that passionate about it because it's affecting us, we're talking about life or death in a lot of these cases, so it's immediate danger. It's not just like a passive, like, oh, like a little play situation. Like, we're talking about people actually being harmed and our safety, and we have so much to do and so much to deal with that this needs to be handled now. We've been constantly told, especially when we're in these moments talking about like Black Lives Matter and back in the day with Black Power movement or the civil rights, women have forever been told, let's put this issue of womanhood on a back burner. It is going, I don't, in my lifetime, I have heard that several times. Like, we put that on the back burner. Let's deal with this now. Well, what is this? Am I not a part of this? We are the people. We wouldn't have a Black community if we weren't birthing them. Like, we are top priority. So why would we not be a priority, fixing our issues? Like, and especially if you are a part of the group who is contributing to some of the issues that we're having. It's like, you have to listen.
Yeah. And like you said, and like this week, we already said is themed a woman's worth, right? So this is volume 2, protection. And we just need to really consider, both as men and women, but more so I'm speaking to the Black men, about our role. What is it? How do we define it? And how do we make sure that we aren't a part of the problem? Making sure that nobody can speak evil of the good that we intend to do. Make sure that your intentions line up with your actions. And the way we do that is by checking ourselves. And if you see somebody doing something, like even if you just hear it and just we passively allow these things to be okayed in culture, we have to challenge those things. We have to make it not cool. I was watching on Hulu a show about the Wu-Tang Clan. They have a whole like show depicting how they as a group came together, and they depicted like the 5 percenters and how they kind of militarized and almost were tough in their activism or in their process of learning how to be, more conscious and, more awakened. And like they would be on the street just hanging out like a gang. And as, people would step to them, they would ask them like boldly and harshly, like, what's the numbers and what's good, God, and all this stuff, right? And if you didn't answer correctly, it was going to be a problem. Like you ran into a gang and you were wearing the wrong colors, but they made it a thing where we're talking about advancement as Black people. And if you're not down with that, we got a problem with you, right? So the same way that you can militarize that idea and you can make it where you're challenging people on that end, why I haven't seen this with Black men on other Black men as groups challenging themselves to say, all right, how are you treating women? What's your expectation of this? What is protecting a woman?
Please do this. Let's make this a trend, please. That would help so much.
But this is something that I've been thinking about for a couple of years now and trying to figure out how to put it together, right? It's going to be very difficult during coronavirus, but it actually might not be difficult because, like I said, I've been feeling more connected to people now than I have been when I saw them in person. And maybe we can have these virtual conversations and try to figure out how to do this. I've been thinking about doing this social media campaign called We Exist. And it's talking about we as the good Black men exist and highlighting those that are out there, but also at the same time, not just have it be, a praise fest of the Black men who are doing good, but also be willing to check those who aren't.
That's the important part. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the part that I don't think gets brought up enough, the checking part. Because like I said, a lot of you guys are scared out there. You scared. But if you scared, how scared is she? Right? So just consider that. But I wanted to did you have any last thoughts on Angela Davis before we move into our Monday morning quarterback?
I mean, that's you pretty much covered everything I was gonna say. About her. Definitely just her boldness and her, like how we always talk about being a champion. Like she didn't just want to just stop at just this one issue, of just Black empowerment or those issues. So she's also a feminist scholar. Well, I don't know if she identifies as a feminist exactly, because
She
sometimes
does.
people get sensitive about the word, right? Because it's different titles, different types of feminism and womanism and stuff like that. But yeah, she's a scholar activist, and like you said, prison abolitionist, and she's just a champion for the people. She doesn't, even with queer rights and stuff. She's a queer woman herself, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got the
I
pleasure
wanted to
of seeing her speak once when
okay.
I was going to Georgia State. Yeah, she was speaking, I think, at Ebenezer Church, and I got to
Mm-hmm.
see her there.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on that point of just the fact that she does identify as a feminist, right? But
Mhm.
a lot of her work is concentrated on the abolition of the prison system and advocating for Black men who are being, unjustly taken in by that system and the
Right.
prison industrial complex. So though she is a feminist, it does not stop her from representing and advocating for men. It's not counterintuitive. It's not, two opposite sides of the frame. A lot of the ways that, feminism is framed. So
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that you only can see women as, important. And it's not trying to elevate women above men. It's just elevating women. You don't have
Because
to
how did
denigrate
we get
men,
there?
right? It doesn't have to denigrate men to elevate women. And
Mhm.
so that's just a last point that I wanted to make, just for anybody who still has issues with like feminism or the identity of it, or
I
people who
can't wait
identify
to
as
get
that,
into it. I can't wait till we
having
have this
that.
actual conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tomorrow. That's a
Mhm.
sneak peek into tomorrow's episode. So yeah, but you can be a feminist and an advocate for, male issues as well. You can still see people as people and still be a well-rounded person. And salute to Angela Davis, and we
Mhm.
hope that you continue to do the work that you're doing. So our Monday morning quarterback, like yesterday, we did a Monday morning quarterback that we need to learn from mistakes of people, of the Black Power movement, having many examples of them diluting the role of women and purposefully leaving them out of situations. And we spoke a little bit about it today with even the Million Man March. It's just so funny that Moesha's episode yesterday was called the Million
The
Boy
Million
March.
Boy one. Yeah.
They were doing the same thing. I'm going to try to play this, not share my screen because I know my technology can't handle it. But I'm going to try to
Mhm.
play it up against my mic, and I want to hear it. Let me know if you can hear this.
Okay.
Sleep is for the rich gun club. Why are you guys out here with guns? Why not? Those guys came on Sunday and they tried to intimidate some innocent women, ladies, unarmed men. They got one of them right here. They got one of them right there. Just post up right there. Just post this people right there. They came out here because those guys came out here trying to intimidate those girls, and they thought that they were gonna have it easy. But one phone call was made, and the whole and everybody came down here armed. No bullshit. And Louisiana is a total gun state. Yeah, it's an open carry state. So that's open carry. So that's why we out here. Who came out here this weekend? Who are you talking about? The Confederates. You watch the news, right? What station you with? KTB. KTB. Oh, y'all ain't keeping up with that? No, I bet. So anybody that keeps up with the news, you should know what went on this weekend. You should know. Don't start paying attention whenever we respond to shit stuff. Alright? Don't start paying attention whenever we start responding. Hey, big dog, hold on. Don't start paying attention whenever we start responding to stuff. The time to pay attention is not when the oppressed people decide to respond to the oppression. You heard me? The time to be caring about race relations is when it's going down. Why are we still having to come out here and fight over a monument that from people who fought against our country, bro? Y'all don't understand the hypocrisy in that? And then you want to ask why we out here protecting these people? It's about good versus evil, that's why. If you claim to be a white ally and you stand with black people, that's cool. We appreciate that. But it's about good and evil, bro. And if you know what's right, you need to get off your high horse and you need to come down here. And if you're in the black community, like I've been saying all day, if you call yourself a tough guy, if you never had a club fight, if you ever been in Coco's and had a club fight or any of these nightclubs, Sandbar, Phoenix, give me a number. If you could go into a nightclub and be ready to punch something down, you need to come down here and be ready to punch something down for your people and for the right cause. And we starting the gun club.
Now I like that.
Yeah. Call them out.
So especially that last part. So I'll go through every element. So there's a group of men, just a group of people in New Orleans, and there were these two girls or a group of girls that were walking down the street, and they, got harassed by some men who were claiming to be like, representatives of the Confederacy or whatever it was. They were trying to, protect that monument that people have been advocating for them to take down. So, like he said one phone call was made and they got together and came down there to make sure that they patrol that area and let people know that you can't just get away with threatening our community, our girls, our women. And they came down there armed, understanding that their rights to carry arms, it goes across, ethnic boundaries and race lines. Yeah. The Second Amendment doesn't just represent, Southern white people. So if you're going to have that law, we can be here, just as much as they can. And even the fact that it was like, why are you questioning us now that something has already happened? Right. Yep. But I love the challenge that he made. So this is a group of black men. They armed and they came to protect black women. And I just wanted to show that as like there is a new wave of things happening. And there has been people, here and there who have been stepping up. But I just like this because it was out there. It got shared. A lot of people saw it. And his challenge to all of the so-called tough guys of the community. If you are fighting in the club, if you tough, you so ready to fight, somebody that looks like you, why you not down here fighting for this?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or else shut up about being tough. Yeah. Right? Don't say nothing about being tough if you're not down here right now. This is where you should be using your gun carrying rights. Not to shoot internally, not to become a domestic terrorist, but to protect ourselves from outside threats. Right? So I love that challenge. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this protection, whether it be protection of, our women or anything else. We have to challenge ourselves. We have to put that out there. And the way that he said that, and he was speaking very clearly, but he also was speaking in a way that spoke directly to the people who probably grew up like him, or the so-called tough guys who live in those communities can understand exactly what he's saying, because he's speaking directly on their level, in their language, to them, not
Right.
above them, not below them. He also wasn't, speaking lower, right?
Right.
To mimic or anything like that. That was just his regular voice, his regular accent. It was passionate about it. You can tell he cared, and all the other people around him, like, it was people backing him up, ad-libbing him, hyping him up. And so if you've seen that video, I'm gonna put the link in the description of the video so you can watch it after the show goes off. But watch it. And there was this other group of people in Stone Mountain about taking down that Confederate monument and protecting people. And so we are getting to a place where we're learning how to have these conversations, but they have to continuously happen. It can't just be that group and then this group. It has to be spread, and the conversation has to continue. So I just wanted to talk about the new wave as something that we can learn from and make sure that we don't lose this momentum. And make sure, as a man, if you see somebody doing something, step to them. There's a way to step to another man and not be violent. And we spoke about that yesterday, right? You as a man should know how to talk to other men. You should know how to move in that circle. So that right there should be just one example of what is happening everywhere. Like we said with the bus boycott, it happened with a group of people started the idea. Then it happened in one city, and then it became a national thing. That should have national impact. We should, just like the sit-in started with 4 students, right? 4 students started, they just went into a Woolworths and they sat down at the counter, and what happened. And then other students started to do it. So if those things can trend, this should trend.
Yeah.
Us standing up, not only in protection of our women and our communities, but us also challenging each other. Like, if you're not down here, I won't hear nothing about you being a G. I won't hear nothing about you being a goon. I won't hear nothing about you being a gangster. I won't hear nothing about how hard you are. Shut up if you're not riding with your people. So what are your takes on that?
You said, you took it right out my mouth. That was so, when I first saw that, I was like, this is so sexy. I loved it, because we don't get to see that. We don't see that too often. Like, and like you said, it should be a normal thing. It should be the popular thing. Let's get that trending. Let's get that, that type of energy, flowing in our communities, where it's something that's on the regular. Like you said, even with the talking about the Wu-Tang film, and that what the 5%ers were doing is like, let's make this a popular thing. Let's make it like, I'm gonna check you on this, make sure that you up for, for all this stuff that we need, that we want in our communities, and instead of fighting internally, because it's easy. We easily victimize each other. We can attack each other, but when it comes to the actual enemy, who wants both of us, they want us to be feuding. But so when it comes to us, we have to be wiser, because at the end of the day, it does come down to, just us. What is our responsibility in it? Because the oppressor, when you look in a lot of different situations, the oppressor just needs to just establish that dominance, right? And then after that, when you instill that fear, they'll start doing it amongst each other. You don't even need the oppressor to be right there for the oppressed to be oppressing each other. You don't even need them to be present. Yeah, that's something we read in the Willie Lynch letters. They gonna start doing it to themselves, and so we just have to be wiser than that, and just put the pressure on ourselves. And again, don't, just like he challenged, the folks who came down there challenging them. He was like, "Why did you just now come down when you hear it, when we're responding to it? Don't just wait till it's something to respond to. Let's actually, when talking about us, protecting each other." Talking about us, being concerned about each other. We need to be checking up on each other on a regular basis. Don't just wait until somebody gets shot. Don't just wait till somebody get disrespected in public. We need to be checking each other on this right now, every day. Make it a year-round thing, especially we're in a time where we're trying to really repair and rebuild, our community as a whole. we have to be like just more selfless and not just worried about, well, my household is intact, and so we good over here. No, because the police don't care if you come from a a two-parent household, and whatever your income is and your profession. When we run into the actual enemy who wants all of us dead, who wants all of us just down low, none of that matters. So we all have to be concerned about each other across gender lines, across whether your class lines or whatever. Like, we just all have to be involved. Yeah, because we tend to do
Class is
that.
a
We
big
tend to
thing.
leave that. Absolutely, because we tend to think, we'll just leave that whole violence factor. Oh, that's just what happens in the hood. And that's not right either. We just have to, because we end up justifying that for them too. Well, they must have deserved it. They live down there.
Angela Davis was talking about that in an interview she did with I can't remember what magazine it was, like in 1997. I was reading it earlier today, and they were asking her about the black bourgeoisie, and she was saying, yeah, there's been a black bourgeoisie developing for a long time. She was talking about even Du Bois, even in the early 19th century, was talking to and moving within a small sect of a black bourgeoisie. There's a whole book about it, and how colorism and all that stuff comes into play, and all these ideas of, oh, those are those people, those are those types of black people, and not us. Right? So, and they try to pit off all the negative stereotypes on the lower class,
all the time,
the poorer black people, but all these things transpire on all levels of our class system. As black people, you will any negative stereotype about black people that you've ever heard or ever seen can be found at each level of class, and each positive image of black people that you've ever heard or ever seen can be found at each level as well. I grew up in a housing project. I grew up in a house with my grandfather and grandmother, who taught me a lot, with my father and mother, who taught me a lot about who I am today and framed my image of how I would look at women. Being able to see women with strong voices and being able to understand how to protect and just how to listen.
Right.
I learned that from my grandfather and my father in the projects. So you're not going to tell me that good images don't come from all social stratospheres. I also saw people working in the housing projects because it's just another apartment. It's just government owned. Most of the people that I know that come from the projects, they are trying to just live their lives, right? I would say 95% of us were just there trying to live, trying to take care of our families and being communal. I grew up in the 90s, born in the late 80s, grew up in the 90s, and still saw community, still saw neighbors who knew each other, still saw people who actually took care of and watched out for other people's children. I still saw that in the 20th century, right? Going into the 21st, that thing where you don't know your neighbors just started.
Yeah, because I grew up with it too.
Yeah. So,
fortunately, fortunately.
Right.
Because right now we don't know it. We don't know our neighbors for real. We don't even know who's right next door to us. We don't know when someone is in danger and they're right next door. And just like, can you imagine you need help? Like, you're in a dangerous situation, life-threatening situation. You can't even run to your neighbor. They'll be like, who are you? Like,
and like we said, you can't protect anybody. You can't chastise. You can't set any types of standards in your community when there is no community. Commune, like a commonwealth, common, unity, like all of those things formulate that word. And you can call it a community all you want, but that's not what we exist in right now. We have to get back there. But I just wanted to, bring to light this new wave and make sure that it's not just these isolated incidents. Make sure that we create this to be a wave where we challenge each other to be present. And anytime we hear gangster music or a gangster presence, I'm like, but where's this gangster when it's time to, fight for our people?
Yeah.
You got the people who killed Ahmaud Arbery. They went home that night. They slept for months. What are gangsters?
Yeah.
Who pressed them? Not even saying just go and do violence. Why ain't nobody pull up on them and at least challenge them? When I, as a black man, walk down the street and I encounter other black men, I have to be ready to be pressed at any moment.
Right.
Why you pressing me?
Right.
But you ain't pressing them.
I wonder why, though. I wonder, I know, I understand that it's like a fear probably of like, and I think also because it's like, it's guaranteed that, at least in people's minds, it's guaranteed that if I come to them, like I'll end up in trouble, and I think that's also something to consider, like, that people are thinking maybe of,
look,
going
George
to somebody
Zimmerman
situation.
was a regular person.
Right.
George Zimmerman was not a police officer. And even before, exactly. I'm not even talking about after the trial. I'm not even talking about right now. We know that they in Florida, right? George Zimmerman, we had to protest just to get him on trial.
Crazy.
Just to get him arrested. People don't remember. Right. But I'm talking about the gangsters. I'm talking to the gangsters. I'm talking to the Broward County, the Dade County gangsters, right? So we know that George Zimmerman didn't immediately get arrested even for killing Trayvon Martin. He went home, slept. No pressing. People knew where he lived.
Yep.
People knew where the whole Trayvon Martin situation happened. Nobody pressed. I'm talking about before he even went on trial. It was plenty weeks and months for them to press him. None of that happened. Okay. So I don't want to hear none of your gangster stuff. I don't want to hear none of it. And then after that, you got other black kids who killed like XXX and killed Pop Smoke. So y'all killed him. I'm just saying, look at yourself and like look at what we accept, black people.
Yep.
And we still listening to this trash. Like, come on. It gotta stop. And we can't just be sitting here like, oh well, it's just music.
No.
Listen. Nah, not when real stuff is happening.
Right.
Not when we can pull a trigger on myself. Because what you're doing is you looking in the mirror. It's like suicide. Because it comes from a lot of self-hatred. So you killing yourself without having to kill yourself.
Absolutely. That's all it is. It's self-reflection. It's like, what do you think of yourself? Like the what we can do to each other, to somebody that looks like you, somebody came from your same background, literally, right? In your neighborhood, walk the same life that you have, and you can do that to them, but you see somebody like, I don't get it.
Make no mistake. I am not sitting here advocating for anything to happen to these people.
For violence.
I'm asking, if you're going to be violent, why? Ask yourself, why was the violence done internally and not externally?
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
So, it just feels dumb. So anyway, I want to see this type of energy. I want to see that, okay, if you in the club and you fighting in the club, you got that toughness. Be tough out here when we representing for something positive. Right? Because they weren't just armed to just go out and be violent. They were showing you will not, without consequence, continue to inflict violence on us or threaten us or exploit us. We are going to protect ourselves, protect our children, protect our women, protect our community. And that's what we're talking about. That's what it has to come down to. We not only have to do it ourselves. It's not enough that you're not a part of the problem. You have to make sure that you're challenging and checking people who are the problem, because you know them.
Right.
I know them. So I'm talking to me. Make sure that you check these people who are around you. Make sure you are conscious of it, because sometimes if it doesn't bother you, if it's not something that you are, just like those of us in America, we ignore the sweatshops that are going on in other countries because we still
Right.
wear those clothes, right? Because it's not in our face, it doesn't bother us. So we are participating in other people's exploitation. We as Black men
Right.
can participate unknowingly in the subjugation and the exploitation of our own women just by not seeing it. So don't turn a blind eye to it. And I'm looking in the screen, so I'm talking to the audience, but I'm talking to me. Right? This is a challenge. So I can't get on here, publicly say these words and not back them up, right? So I'm putting myself on blast. So we're gonna move on, and it's staying with the theme of the show. Whew. I deconstructed today.
It's heavy.
I deconstructed today is poetic justice, and I don't know. We were actually talking this morning because I didn't know what we were going to talk about today. And I was like, we were both like, man, I couldn't think of nothing. And then Michelee offered something that we are going to cover. But I was like, you know what? Poetic justice covered this exact thing that we're talking about. Yeah. And it just popped in my brain. Yeah, twice.
2 times.
So we're going on 2 different levels.
Yep. So yeah, it's 2 different clips, 2 short clips from Poetic Justice covering 2 topics that we just covered today. So the first one, we're gonna take it back to a conversation we had earlier, right? So on protection. So give me just a second.
Yeah, because and while you put it up, I'll just share this, because it doesn't just show. Michelee brought up a good point about protection not just being physical. We have to protect on all different levels of our women.
Right.
And so just watch this with us.
All right.
Now you kind of quiet, huh? I guess so.
I ain't got nothing to say.
Why you so mean? What you got to be so mean about? Feminist.
What you call me?
You said you a mean witch.
We gotta stop this right now. You don't know nothing about me, okay?
Don't be calling me no witch. You don't know nothing about me.
Yeah, I'm acting all courteous and stuff, trying to spark up a conversation. Brother gotta call you a witch to get
Look,
your attention.
I'm a Black woman, okay? I deserve respect. Don't be calling me no witch.
Hey.
If I'm a witch, yo mama's a witch.
We ain't talking about my mama. We talking about your stuck-up butt. Scandalous stuck-up witch think a brother's supposed to do some freaking magic tricks to your butt.
Pull this over right now. Pull it over.
Where you finna go?
Damn you.
What do you know, witch?
Pull this thing over.
Get your stuff. Get your stuff.
Damn you.
Step out of your mouth.
Crazy son of a
What are
witch.
you chucking all that trash for? Go on, get out of here. Just walk your butt home. Go on, get ghosts.
I better not see your butt in L.A., okay?
What's going on?
They gonna mess you up.
Damn you, damn you, damn you, witch. Damn you, witch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the super edited version from BET. but you got the gist. I'm sure a lot of people saw that movie. It actually been a minute since I watched the whole movie, but we got the gist of the conversation, even with the edit. But yeah, it goes back. What were we talking about with this the whole protection, and one of the points deconstructing this whole clip. It was so many
Mm-hmm.
parts in that movie, but this particular clip, we were talking about protecting women, protecting Black women, and a lot of times it comes with, like, those limitations. I can look out for you or be concerned up until a certain point when I feel like I can get something from you, but when I can't get that out of you, or when we're not crossing those boundaries, crossing certain boundaries, I know I can only go to a certain level with you, then now all the respect is gone, so I'll leave you out in the cold. So what'd you get from that? Or what you think about that one?
Yeah, so trying to talk to her, she don't want to talk. So is it compulsory for her to talk to you? Like, maybe, like, they don't know each other. We know just from having watched the movie, they don't know each other. And I can understand the desire to want to speak to somebody who is sitting next to you for a long trip. However, if the person says, I don't have anything to say, I just don't feel like talking, you can look over at her and see that she's clearly in her own head if you're paying attention to that, that level of things, and just leave the person alone. And actually, in my experience with anybody, if you let the person just be quiet and they see that, oh man, they just actually respected my wishes, she might spark the conversation with you later. She might say thank you. She might say, oh, that was a cool dude. But it just went to a different level, and like the level it went to this quick of her just saying, I'm just sitting here, I just want to be left alone. He accused of her being mean. Then he called her a feminist.
But the thing is, like, we have the right to, like I was talking about earlier, entering the store and walking out of the train station and stuff. We have the right to be in our own spaces and be unbothered. We do not have to, like, I always see these conversations in which it actually formed my opinion and shaped my actions, like my behavior, of seeing all the time, like, men talking about, well, women don't speak when you open the door. We have to deal with this stuff all the time. Like, I started wearing a fake wedding ring very early. Like, it's so many different systems, different tricks to the trade, that we have to learn to protect our own peace. And it's like, even with that, I remember just taking the MARTA in Atlanta, and it's like, it's a guarantee that it's at least 5 people that's gonna try me today. Like, ask me for my number, the whole go around, I'm married, I got a boyfriend, whatever. Well, I could be your friend. Like, just leave me alone. I just want to be left alone. Do I not ever have that right to be left alone? And people don't understand that. And then immediately, once they are rejected, it goes to disrespect. Then it can go further because of their insecurities or their, feeling rejected, that it can come to harm. And it's like this stuff, I'm not the only one that experiences this. I see it every day. I see it all the time. Well, I used to see it every day. Now I'm not in that same environment, but it still happens in this part of the world. Like, it's a everyday thing for a lot of people. And I mean, it's just crazy. Like, we don't have, it's like we don't have that right to reject you. And we're constantly moving and shaping ourselves, to not offend, to not make you feel rejected. And like, a lot of us have also even form the ability to turn you down, like, without making you feel bad, but that's taking extra time. I got stuff to do. I'm walking home, I'm walking to class, I'm walking wherever I gotta go. I don't have time to sit there and try to make you figure out a way to finesse you to turn you down, but make you, what I mean, to not harm me. And I shouldn't have to do that. It should be normal, to just not, like, to leave somebody alone. I've had to, well, we'll get to that on the next part, but yeah, that's my part on that.
Yeah. And
exactly.
So this
women get
pulls us
physically and
into
verbally
our
attacked.
next part. So load up the second clip.
All right. We gonna get, because this is the next part. We about to get up into this.
So yeah, so just like she was saying, sometimes you don't even consider the agency that you're taking away. Like, is she not ever allowed to just be left alone? And also, I feel like, so this is one of those things where I feel like men should have sessions on learning how to take rejection.
Yes.
It's going to happen to you in life. Women and men are both going to be rejected by somebody. And, just understanding what that is and just moving on with your day, moving on with your life. You don't have to, carry that. And like I said, even before, we are partly in control of what offends us. We have control over because you have to take offense.
Right.
That's an action. You're deciding to allow that to offend you. Right. Even if it's intended to. Sometimes you take offense to things that are intended to offend you. Sometimes you take offense to things that aren't. So we have to check ourselves in that situation.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go.
All right. You see it? We up on the screen.
Yep.
All right. Oh wait, let me give a little disclaimer, okay? Because she was, she going off on him a little bit, just kind of talking about him, dogging him a little bit, but okay, I'm for anybody who hasn't seen it, she kind of getting on him a little bit, and he start feeling some type of way. So let's see his actions.
Yo, what? Calm down, Aisha. Calm down. Don't fight with me, girl. Leave her alone. Let me. I ain't gonna do nothing.
Hell no.
Get off me.
That's their business.
Are you messing with me? Get off me. Rich. How much stuff I gotta take off you, Aisha? How much stuff I gotta take? Get the hell off of her. Shoot.
Hey, punk.
You ain't got nothing to do with this stuff.
Get off me! Get the hell off me! Get off me!
Get the hell off her. You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
The hell is wrong with you?
What the hell is your problem, man? Beating up a freaking female.
She hit me.
You can't handle it no freaking better than
You
that.
gotta get busted up, you bitch! Punk time! I'm gonna get dookie and monster to shoot you! Punk boy! Stop it, Aisha!
They ain't gonna do nothing. Damn you.
What the hell is your problem, man? I
Hell's
told you to
wrong with
handle
you?
this stuff from jump. Stuff wouldn't have been messed up.
You just strung it over that witch. You just want some, that's all. Get your punk right here, punk!
You little punk. Old coward little punk. Hit a man. Find the freaking bus, you little punk. I'm leaving you here.
All right, so that's pretty much the end of that thing.
Yeah.
So, let's get into this. How about you deconstruct on start this one?
Right.
What do you think?
So it goes back to the point of what we were talking about before, where people aren't stepping in. So everybody's gonna see Chicago is the character's name.
Yeah.
Hit Regina King's character. I can't remember her character's name. But that clearly is horrible, right? So like you set it up where she was talking trash. She was, kind of like deflating him and attacking all his pressure points as a man.
Right.
And not being trained on how to take that emotional attack. He hit her. Never acceptable, right? You can say all day, oh, she provoked him. And she was purposely provoking him to do something and kind of like putting it in his face, you're not going to do nothing. Those are situations you walk away from. Those are people, if that person is intentionally provoking you, you just don't deal with them anymore, right? You remove yourself from that situation, or you don't even put yourself in a situation where you're isolated with a person like that, right? So that's how you as a man protect yourself. If you know that this is a woman who will do that and start to attack you in that way, because women do have the power to like make a man feel this big just with words, because a lot of us aren't well versed in that area, which is why our voice elevates, right? We start yelling because we don't have the ability to calmly speak to you and make you feel that way, right? So that's one part. So it's never acceptable to hit her. Just remove yourself from that situation, because come on, we know how relationships work. This is not the first time she spoke to him that way. This is not the first time that they, are in this heated exchange like that. So he knew what type of person she was before they even went on this trip. So it's partly he's to blame for not for just putting himself in that position, right? So then he hits her. Right. He hits her, another poor decision. And she goes on the attack, and then he continues to hit her. Now, here's the big issue. Of course, we already know the issue of him hitting her is wrong. But Janet asks Tupac, or Justice asks Tupac, Lucky.
Right.
Trying to remember these characters' names. So Justice asked Lucky, "You're not gonna do nothing?" He was like, "Nah, that ain't my business." Right. Now you see a man hitting a woman right in your face, not just some random man either. Your homie.
Your friend.
And you not even checking him. You're not gonna do nothing. And it wasn't until Janet or Justice got out the car and he was attacking her that he said, "Why you fighting a female?" So Regina King not a woman?
Right.
Because that is what that insinuates. He only says, "Why are you hitting a female?" once he starts attacking Justice. And then they fight and whatever. But he did say, if you would have dealt with this earlier, none of this would have ever happened. He did say that. However, he still didn't get involved until Justice was in danger. And like Chicago alluded to, you only sprung out over her. Are you standing up for her only because you expect something from her, or that you building something with her? Because he did not mention Regina King. He almost took her womanhood away from her, because he was like only saying you hit a woman, you don't fight no woman, when Justice was in danger. So that part got me, because we just talked about checking people and making sure that you check the people who are around you and in your circle. And even I understand if it's a stranger, I still don't accept it, because you're a punk if you don't step to anybody who's doing wrong. You're just a punk, and I don't want to hear nothing about you talking hard ever again. And it was just annoying to see that he would allow it to happen to somebody else. And coming from his friend, like Chicago's the one.
It wasn't a stranger.
Chicago's the one who brought Lucky on the trip.
Yeah.
Because Chicago is in relationship with Regina King. Justice and Lucky just met each other. Right. So it was just, that whole thing is like a microcosm of what we're talking about. Because that stuff is real. And it happens.
Can I say, so I've actually been in that position of Justice, of that character. And where I have been, like I said, when I used to take public transportation in Atlanta on the MARTA, like whether on a train or something, and I would see, because we have this like unspoken language, or like I can read people's body language and stuff, and I know from me being uncomfortable in certain situations, I can see when another woman is uncomfortable in a situation, and I've had to be the one to go and sit next to her because of the threat of other men. People won't leave her alone or something, or I've been the one to say something to a stranger. And it's like, if nobody, because I always think about, like, if I would want somebody to come to my rescue, right? If it were me, and that's why I felt so isolated that one time, the first time that it happened, because I'm like, I will always, and I'm like, I'm not even 5 feet tall. Like I'm, you know, and I'm like, for me to go to step to somebody that I don't know, and that's not saying that I'm not scared or I'm not like aware that something might happen to me. I know that I'm potentially putting myself at danger. So why can't you, as a man, like, and I don't care, you can just create a distraction. You can do something, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it can be multiple people. Y'all need to come up with gestures or something, like, hey, like, let's gang up on them or something. If you're scared to do it, like, it has to be something to where we're not left alone to do it. Because like you said, what we just saw in the clip, she challenges him, like, first of all, like, that's your friend. He's not even a stranger. That's your friend. You're not afraid of him. You're not wondering if you got a gun on him or something. That's your friend, and he's assaulting this woman physically. While they were watching the whole thing, I can tell, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell it's about to come to something, how he's creeping up on her and everything. He knows what's about to happen. And then they just sit there and watch, and she's like, you know, you're not going to say anything. You're not going to do anything. And still, she's the first one to go make a move. She's not going to let that happen to her friend.
Right.
And she's the one that goes and makes a move. And she doesn't know this guy like that. You know, he could, and he did hit her. I was going to say he could, you know, harm her, but he did hit her, you know, and then, you know, and then why did it take that? Only because he's interested in her romantically, or, you know, whatever. That's the only reason why he came to her rescue. You didn't, just like you said, he didn't consider Regina's character a woman. He didn't consider her as a woman, and you know, protecting her in that way, but only the person who he was interested in. And you know, so that's what we were just talking about, what we can do, like roles you can take when you are not the one committing the crime, or you know, there are always ways to kind of step in. Even I've seen people like even being assaulted in public, and it's like situations where it's like you can call the police, you can call security right there, you know, go in the store and have the owner call the police. So you know, like it's all types of situations that we see, that I've seen personally. And why am I the only one that's going to react? I'm not the only one that's around here. And I think we're so used to seeing, especially in certain neighborhoods, we're used to seeing violence. And you know, even when it comes to like catcalling, we like to reduce that. I experienced it in another country, like to where it was on a different level. I've been used to like catcalling, you know, from where I'm from, places that I lived and stuff, but it was a different type of energy. It was like where it's like they purposely wanted to degrade me by doing this, right? And I don't know, it just felt weird that like other people around can hear that, they can see how uncomfortable you are, and nobody says anything to them. Like we're just so used to seeing it. It's like when it's become when it's been like, you know, just ingrained and just in the culture, because we hear it in music all the time. I always wonder, do you ever think about like it's some of the new songs that'll come on, you know, I don't play the radio. I stick to songs that I know I might listen to. You know, I might play a playlist that'll bring up some new random songs, but I'll always hear these, like it'll be that violent, well, that aggressive, you know, like a guy talking about what he's gonna do to another guy, like, you know, I'll shoot him, da, 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 and then I'll F your B. And then it's like, what did she do? Like, why you gotta assault the woman in the, you were talking to the man. Like, why they always use the woman? Like, why did you have to bring his wife or girlfriend into it? Why you have to bring his mama and sister into it? Like, why are we always the one? You know, so when stuff like that is just normal and we don't check it, the images that we see and, you know, put ourselves in that position to be like degraded. You know what I mean? The thing is, I think a lot of people justify it too by like, you know, well, the women are going to do it. They're always going to be there to do it. Yes, some people, like I said, a lot of us have internalized, you know, misogyny and all kind of stuff. And it can be low self-esteem. It can be, you know, just desperate for the opportunity, for the exposure, for the money, like whatever reason that people put themselves in degrading situations, you know, for whatever their reasons are. still, the fact remains that, you know, we shouldn't be portraying these types of images, you know, of ourselves, the people that we claim to care about or to love. And that's the problem, is that a lot of times when we be like, well, you come from a Black mom and you have Black sister, this and that, they don't care. They don't see themselves, you know, they don't see us, you know, as a reflection. They don't see us as a part of them. And that's the problem. It shouldn't be just your direct relative. It shouldn't just be the person you're directly involved with. I always tell, like, even my significant other, like, if there's another woman, just know that your woman wants you to protect her just like you would protect me. Okay? Let that be your sister. Let that be your woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point we have to get to. We don't have to wait until it's just somebody that you know directly.
Right. Yeah. And that's the mentality that we have to start teaching, right? We have to get that out there. We have to popularize it. We have to make that trend. Every woman is your auntie. Every woman is your sister. Every woman is your niece. Everyone, right? And with that mentality, we'll carry ourselves differently. And if you hold a door, like I hold a door for women all the time, right? I do things like that, chivalrous. And we're going to talk about that in a little minute. But I do that all the time. And sometimes I'll get where, you know, the ungrateful ones, I'll get a thank you. I'll get a nothing. I'll get a I can do it, right? Like they take offense of me. If my niece or my auntie or my sister got an attitude with me, I'm not just going to diss her off the earth, right? I've gotten into disagreements with women in my life, but I don't just disregard them and just turn disrespectful on them just because they may or may not appreciate something that I've done. I'm like, oh man, that's messed up. And then move on with my day.
Yeah.
It don't have to turn into me attacking them, into me saying, oh, you don't appreciate such and such. Like, okay, that's one.
It happens too much, though. It happens way too much. You shouldn't have to do something for feedback. Like, if you want to open a door for a woman because that's what you do, that's what you were taught to do, that's what you want to do. Like, chivalry does not just depend on how the other person is going to respond. You just do it. I don't like if I give somebody something, like, I'm not expecting them to give me the same thing, you know, just depending on the relationship or the situation, but we shouldn't be expecting that all the time.
So, like you just saw on the screen, that's our for the culture today, right? There's a thin line between chivalry and chauvinism. And it's, you know, people don't know the difference. And it shouldn't be where your chivalry is dependent on the response that you get. It shouldn't be conditional, right? I'll do this under the conditions that I receive this, and this. Yeah, no, that's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be you present yourself in a certain way because you understand. The whole point of it is to understand the value of women, right? It's not saying that women can't hold their own doors. It's not saying that you can't walk on the dangerous side of the street where the oncoming traffic is. It's just saying that me as a man, understanding my position in the world, I value you.
Yeah.
I value your presence as a woman, and I respect my role as the protector. I value that role, and being able to take all of this testosterone and this strength and all of these things that I was born with to put them into some type of productive use. We know that it was given to me so that I could go out and provide for the family and do these things. So let's update it to this context. How can I modernize my abilities to make sure that I still provide protection and look out for my sisters, for my wife, for my mother, for my daughters, for my nieces, whoever else, aunties, whatever other woman comes into your life, right? So it's it's just necessary for us to understand why we do these things. And what is chauvinism? Chauvinism is taking your malehood and your privilege and your views of women, not valuing them, but undervaluing them, and saying that I'm holding the door because you can't do it, or telling women what they can't do and boxing them into this inflexible steel cage of not being able to making them conform to your views, and everything has to be, even the roles that people play are based on what makes you comfortable as a man. So I wanted to talk about in the vein of protection, because I say it's a thin line. T.I. got into some hot water, right? Because he was on a podcast and he was talking about his oldest daughter. And he was saying that from the time that she was 13 or so up until she was 17, he didn't clarify this though on the podcast.
Yeah.
From 13 to 17, he took her to the gynecologist, and he would ask the gynecologist to check her hymen to make sure that she was still not sexually active. And T.I. looked at it like, I'm just an active father. I'm trying, and his intention, right, was to break the narrative that Black fathers aren't in the lives of their children and aren't in the lives of their daughters. And so he saw it as, I need to protect her. I need to show that I am interested. Now, he did clarify that he wasn't in the exam room.
Right. He's not the one sitting up there looking like,
right. He went into, and spoke with the doctor afterwards.
Yeah.
But he got confronted with women challenging even that, right? So what was your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, when the conversation first went down, like I already assumed, like I was pretty sure he wasn't talking about physically, being there, looking himself, looking at that himself, because people took, especially with social media comments, people took it way too far, making assumptions. But still, I mean, it was a bit intrusive. I mean, how about just have this conversation, have a normal conversation about this with her instead of, because that's like, I would hate to find that out. That would be horrifying to find that out, like even later in life. Like, you did what? You asked my doctor what? Like, why not just talk to me about something like that?
Well, she knew he was doing it.
Oh, really? Oh, God. So
he was, because he took her to the appointment, but he sat in the waiting room, and then he would talk to the doctor. She was there, so she knew that it was happening. Her problem was that he told it to the world, and he said it in jail.
Right.
And so, but in T.I.'s mind, so this is the thing where when we talk about counsel culture and not cancel, right? Yeah. So this isn't something that he should have got canceled for.
Yeah.
He just didn't know, and his intentions, like we say, the good path to hell is paved with good intentions. His intentions were good. He was not only trying to break the narrative of Black fathers not being in the lives of their children, trying to be, there for his daughter, trying to do all these things. These were his mindset. But that's why I put there's a thin line between chivalry and chauvinism, because what he was doing was putting her in a box.
Right.
Because they asked him, would he do the same thing for his son? Does he care about his son's virginity? Right. And so he didn't feel the same way.
Right.
So that's not a cancel moment. That's a teaching moment.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Like, and T.I., honestly, he's one who he says a lot of problematic stuff. I watch his podcast sometimes, even with his wife sitting there with him, and she'd be like, "What? You just said what?" And I'm like, "Oh God!" Like, I'm cringing. Like, girl, please, just. I hope that she's talking to him at home. Like, baby, this ain't it. Please don't. But he has the right idea. I can tell by the way that he talks, you know, that he's showing concern. He thinks that he's doing it the right way. I think he has just a lot of those old school ideas of just being protective, but it ends up being overbearing. And it's just like, we have too much information now. It's too much, you know, we're talking about it. A lot of women have spoken about and written about their experiences and how, you know, how it's affected us in adulthood. And we need to learn from that. Don't just keep going with tradition. Let me bring up another point. Are you done talking about this one? Because I want to bring up something under this same subject. Okay. So even something, we're talking about chivalry, right? And just these expectations. So I see a lot of conversations, I have some, you know, plenty of single friends out here, single woman friends, and this dating world seems to be just so tough. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm considering being like a matchmaker. I think I do a pretty good job. I done hooked up some nice couples, you know, they flourishing right now, but I see a lot of friends who are struggling in this dating world. And I, of course, see a lot of the conversations. You know, you hear stuff like, you know, people finessing somebody out of a dinner or something, but still, like you said, in that other situation from the clip, you can choose to walk away. If you see somebody's a scammer, you can tell somebody's a scammer, right? It's your fault if you stay in that situation. But in other cases, right, when we're talking about just with courting or whatever, I'm seeing a lot of disturbing conversations going on, like some ideas that seem to be pretty constant amongst men, feeling that a woman owes them their body if you pay for a date, you know, or like literally this, and if she doesn't do that, then she's a gold digger, then she's a scammer, you know what I mean? And that conversation is so disgusting to me. I can't stand it. And I think it's just been this narrative spread that like all women are after, if she doesn't give it up after you pay for a date, like as if, you know, it's a price on my body. Pause. You need to get it right. Like some of y'all need to really just check yourselves on that. You do not buy our body. I don't care if you bought her a Bentley truck. You don't buy like somebody just commented a burger. Buying me a burger is not it's not, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you my body. You know what I mean? And it's just crazy, just the conversations that's going on. And it seems to be normal. And even a lot of women, I've seen a lot of women even kind of like co-signing that. It's like, yeah, well, she's just ungrateful or this and that. You know, like it just goes so deep. And I think a lot of us need to do a lot of like relearning, like unlearning, you know, unconditioning from those ideas of a woman's place and you know, just what a woman's supposed to do for you when you do this for them. It's like we need to get out of that.
Yeah, that has to be, again, see, that's one of those conversations that can't happen isolated with just women and men.
Yeah.
Aside in their echo chambers. That has to be set as a standard. There has to be a standard set. And honestly, women, you have the agency to set that standard, to say, nah, this isn't going down. Because men, we acquiesce to a lot of the things that you guys do. We change dress code based on what you guys accept. We do a lot at the behest of women, and a lot of the things that do fly is because other women are accepting it. So
let me pause. Let me real quick. Because I meant to put this a part of that. Before you even finish that, let me just say that I am not gonna set that standard for every woman. Like, you know, we have all of these rules, and it goes back, you know, maybe somebody grandmama told them this, or, you know, whatever, holding out for 3 months or however long. You know, if a woman chooses to, like, you have the decision to do whatever you want to do. It doesn't devalue you. But
it's her decision. It's not as a compensation for the dinner, though.
No, of course. But I'm talking about the interpretation. Like some guys may have experience like dating a woman or taking a woman out on a date, and then, you know what I mean, she choosing with her choosing to, interact with him, beyond that date. And that is her choice. That is their choice, right? To act on that. So do not take that as this is the standard. This is what these women do. And if they don't do that, then they ain't, about this. And we have to just just know that we're different too. So learn those are things that it's not like a standard of this is a woman is this if she does this or if she doesn't do that. We have to get out of the idea, because you can be sexually free just because someone expresses their sexuality and their pleasure. That doesn't make them less of a woman than someone who keeps it tight and wears a turtleneck and a skirt down to her ankles. That doesn't take anything away from that, from the woman who chooses to be sexually free. So let's please get that clear. A lot of guys, and women who also put those views on other women.
And what I was saying about women setting the standard, not that a standard should be set on the timeline of how people engage sexually. That's on them. That's their decision. I'm saying the standard should be set between men and women in dating, that whatever happens between us romantically, sexually, anything is not attached to it's not compensation for this.
Right.
It's not in response to the dinner. It's not in response to the date. It's not in response to the gift. Like Nas had this crazy song that still to this day makes zero sense to me. The one with Genuine, you know what I'm talking about?
You owe me. Yeah. That beat, that was my song now. That beat, that when I was young. I didn't know what it was talking about.
Shawty, you can hold my ice.
Right.
No, Shawty say, what's your price?
Say, what's your price? If you back it up, you can hold my ice.
So hold on, whoa. That's the exchange, right? She backed it up. Now she can hold the ice. Now she owes you something on top of that. I'm like, what does that even mean? What is this song talking about? It makes no sense. But this is something that we just let slide, and that's why we're talking about there's a thin line between chivalry and chauvinism. We let a lot of stuff slide, especially if it's in music. What? So we got to make sure that even though we don't want to set a golden, hard, inflexible standard on how women can choose to wield their agency in their own, sexuality or whatever that is. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying women and men, there needs to be a standard set of understanding that paying for this date doesn't equal access to my body or this stuff. That standard needs to be set and understood. That's something that should be solidly understood, that anything else that happens is just based on chemistry and whatever else, how that builds up. So, those are things that will be a part of this institution that you and I are thinking of.
Yes.
But like we always say, ASAP is the Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. We are bringing up highlights of people who have done things so that we can acknowledge them and still actualize them to this day. We are talking about things that are currently happening and understanding how we can shift the culture, shift that mindset so that we can be productive. We want to be results oriented. We want to be solution oriented. We want to be conversational, not confrontational. Right? Counsel, not cancel. Right? So these are the things that we are modeling here. As always, in the Actualized African Unity. African Unity is a nonprofit organization. We actually do things on the ground in Africa, in the Caribbean, in the US, in other parts of the diaspora, so that you can get involved. We believe in African unity. We believe in Pan-Africanism. We believe that it can be tangible. We believe that it's not just theoretical. There are actual things that you can participate in. This is just one of the facets of what we do in modeling these types of conversations and bringing this to your home. But we are a real organization that does work out in the community when there is no pandemic happening. So please visit the website, visit us on social media, all at African Unity. Just hit a milestone on YouTube, so we can be found at youtube.com/C/African Unity. And it's not a bunch of, random keys. So, we actually
And
able
make sure that you like, comment, and comment, join the conversation
and
with us.
share
Let us know.
it
Yeah,
out,
share it.
because that's how other people and new people find these videos, so they can be interactive in the comment sections and moving these types of dialogues along, because we can't really have these type of intense dialogues over Twitter and on just Facebook. Like, the back and forth that we can have with you guys in the comments is more fruitful, because we can actually have a dialogue with you guys, and so much more. So we hope that you visit us. Michelee, let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me on my website at www.mishmashworld.com. And you can find me on social media, where on my Twitter, I'm currently not as active, but I will be very soon, at Michie the Maker. And that's about it. Make sure, like T said, you can like, comment, and share these discussions. Join us in the discussion. Join us on the website and become a member. You can donate, become a monthly member, a donor. Spread the word.
Right.
We're trying to do some good work. We got a lot of good projects in the works, and it's a community effort.
Memberships, we'll start talking about them a lot, as we continue. So we appreciate you guys as always. We will be here same time, Tuesday through Friday. This week is still focused on a woman's worth. Tomorrow's going to be a fun conversation, because we are talking about womanism and feminism and all the misconceptions that go into all of it, and really just bring in some realness to that conversation. And
can't wait.
Love you guys. Peace.